Welcome to DFS Karma, where we talk about our favorite fantasy sports plays for football, basketball, baseball, and pretty much everything else. Be sure to check out and create an account with all of our partners, such as MonkeyKnifeFight.online, PrizePicks.online, and StatHero.online. Use the promo code KARMA on any of these sites to get an exclusive deposit bonus. And don't forget to check out all of our free fantasy content on DFSKarma.com, as well as our own premium plays. Without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Please welcome today's hosts.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 2 edition of Game Theory Thursday. I'm your host, Ben Hustler. I'm joined by the regular Bales, and we have Matt with us today, aka Mig the Tig, as you can see his Twitter handle underneath his name. If you guys watch these podcast video, however you consume it last season, you'll know Matt from them. Obviously, really smart when it comes to all sports, so we're excited to get him on here to talk some football. I know Week 1 was really good for me. I don't know how it went for you guys. You guys can address that when we get into the games, but we have just. This is a really fun slate, in my opinion. I think that when Anthony and I started looking at it on the cash process, which is up on YouTube, I just really liked a ton of plays right off the bat. I think that my lineups have kind of really just been making themselves, as Matt told me earlier this week. I think I really like the way that I'm going. And as you notice, after Sam's fiasco at the end of last week's podcast, we had to kick him off. I have no toleration for that. So he got suspended for a podcast. But we're going to jump right into things. We're going to keep the same format. We're going to talk about the best games. Then we're going to go into some cash plays, tournament plays, and some bold calls before we head out. First game we're going to talk about is the Falcons and Cowboys. Pretty much probably the best game of the week, I would say. As far as injury news goes, nothing really on the Falcons side. Jake Matthews missed practice today, so I guess that's something to monitor, but they don't really have a ton of injury news. Cowboys, however, lost Leighton Vander Esch. Obviously, they're still without Lyle Collins. Sean Lee's still out. So Vander Esch is a big hit, obviously, to their defense. And then they also lost Blake Jarwin, breakout tight end candidate. But I think that a lot of ownership is going to get forced onto this game. So I'm going to start with Matt, since this is your first pod of the year. Go ahead and tell me how you are attacking this game.
Yeah, so I think probably the most impactful thing is the loss of the middle linebacker, Pro Bowler, Vander Esch. I think that's a big deal, and not necessarily in the run game. I don't, I'm not a Todd Gurley guy. I know our boy AC always loves him some Gurley, whether it's smart or not. But I think this opens up a lot over the middle of the field for Hayden Hurst. But before I even get into the play specifically, from a Vegas perspective, this is really like a super hot game. It's up 2.5 points off the open. So it opened at 50, which is kind of a pivotal spot, and it bumped up by 2.5. And the spread compressed from 7-point dogs down to 4.5 dogs for Atlanta. So it indicates maybe a closer game than initially thought, and even more points to be scored. So love that. I mean, the game environment is beautiful. Pace is going to be really good for this game as well. This new look Cowboys offense is going to be moving quick like they did last week. What I want to hit on specifically is Hayden Hurst. I think that's a perfect example of a play that a lot of people are going to assume that Russell Gage is like the number 3 on this team because he was last week, and we had 3 people that, went over 100 yards, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think, Hayden Hurst was the only tight end in the league in week 1 with 2 deep targets with 20 yards or more downfield. He was on the field a ton. He ran the most routes of any tight end in week 1. And then they just lost their middle linebacker. So the middle of the field is going to open up. Keep in mind, Dallas gave up the most catches in the NFL last year to tight ends. And Vander Esch missed almost half of last season as well. And the stats got worse and worse when he went out as far as tight end coverage. So anyways, beating it to death, but I really like Hayden Hurst. I do not think a lot of people are going to be on him, this week after being kind of disappointed with them last week after all the offseason hype with all the private workouts, Matty Ice and all that. But what do we see? We saw targets. We saw tons of routes, but he had studs covering him. It was brutal with Bobby Wagner And then who they get a safety? They got Jamal Adams. Yeah, they got Jamal Adams, who's an unbelievable monster. So he's going up against two of the best defenders in the league covering that position. I love him. I'm the biggest Julio truther in the world, and my bias is so bad that like I never provide analysis on him because like I have Julio Jones T-shirts and jerseys, and I'm just like, he won me six figures, and I love him. So I'm always going to play Julio. I think this year it's going to be really hard to differentiate between Julio and Ridley, unless there's a really obvious shadow situation where we don't really like the matchup for one of them. But that's not going to happen this week. I think that it's going to be hard to pick between those two. I think you just mix them in. I think they're both always probably cash playable. But this week there's no specific reason why I'd really want to go for one or the other. They both run deep routes. They both get red zone looks and the like. I'll just cover one play on the other side, then I'll flip it to someone else. I don't want to take up the whole time. But on Dallas, I actually like CeeDee Lamb with Blake Jarwin going down. And again, a lot of hype for him. They got this backup who doesn't inspire much. And CeeDee Lamb saw the field a ton. Saw a lot of targets across the middle of the field. He ran exclusively out of the slot. I think those short intermediate passes across the middle, now that Jarwin is gone, I think they're going to look to see CeeDee Lamb. And he looked good. So I'm going to be looking to CeeDee Lamb. And again, you guys can hit on the great smash spot, as they say, for Zeke and some of the other wide receiver plays. Tons of wide receiver plays. I don't know what you guys are thinking, Ben or Bales, on the rest of those wide receiver plays.
Yeah, Bales, you go ahead.
I mean, do they play in this offense? Go ahead and give them a go this week. Like we saw Atlanta last week they didn't get into necessarily a shootout. They kind of got blown out right from the get-go, and then got a little bit closer against Seattle. But Matt Ryan threw it 54 times. It's not really going to be different this week. So you can more or less go anyone you want there. Personally, I feel like Julio and Ridley are just kind of in like a league of their own. They're just so much better than a guy like Russell Gage. I'll echo what Matt said. I really like Hayden Hurst. I think he's going to have a great season, and it's such a good spot because people in fantasy do not have a short memory. They remember every time someone burns them, and Hurst didn't look good the first week. Not that he didn't look good, he just didn't produce well. On the other side, I'll let Ben talk about Zeke because we know he loves talking about running backs against Atlanta, and I will go with Michael Gallup. I agree with CeeDee Lamb and just a ton of targets and stuff, but Michael Gallup, let me quick pull this up. His ADOT last week was over 17. His game doesn't look great. He had 3 for 50, but obviously had that just ridiculous deep ball against Jalen Ramsey called back. If he catches that, it's really not a bad game whatsoever. And I feel like with him being slightly more expensive, $900 more expensive than Lamb, and people most likely gravitating towards Cooper because he saw the lion's share of the targets, Gallup is just going to go way underowned. And realistically, it's not like Gallup isn't kind of the 1B to Cooper. And we saw last year with Randall Cobb, this offense can very clearly handle three wide receivers. They can target them absolutely plenty. And I don't necessarily expect Dalton Schultz to be commanding targets or anything. So you more or less have Zeke that's going to get his, and then the 3 receivers. It's a situation where it wouldn't be overly surprising if all 3 come out and dominate the same way that Atlanta had it last week. 3 receivers over 100 yards seems relatively unlikely, but when you add in touchdowns and stuff, it's not really that crazy. I do think if I'm talking GPP specifically, Michael Gallup is the guy that I'm going with.
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much nailed this. This is an obvious game stack spot. I completely agree with Matt. I like Hayden Hurst a lot as a tight end pivot. I think a lot of ownership is going to go back to my man Logan Thomas, which we'll talk about later. I think he's going to be really chalky on both sides. I think Hurst is a really good pivot. And Bales, I agree. Michael Gallup is such a good play. So how this is going to work is Amari Cooper is way too cheap on DraftKings at 6,300. So he's going to be really popular there. And then on FanDuel, CeeDee Lamb is 5,200. He's going to be really chalky there. So there's no situation where people are going to play Gallup, especially like you said, his game log doesn't look good because of that PI call at the end. But I just love this game. Zeke, like you said, Zeke's probably the top running back play on the slate, in my opinion, right there with Derrick Henry and some others. But I mean, we've targeted guys that can catch passes against this Atlanta defense pretty much since Dan Quinn took over. And Chris Carson is not what you would necessarily call a pass catching running back. And he somehow caught 2 touchdowns against him last year. So it looks like it's going to be more of the same. And Zeke was actually PFF's highest graded running back in week 1. He looked really good catching the ball. So I think, Zeke's a smash play. Matt Ryan, I think, is tournaments only for me. Dak is one of the top plays on the slate. So my game article is not up yet, but I already did this game. Dak's really, really good at home. Much better quarterback at home. His yards per attempt rises from 7.4 to over 9 at home in Dallas. Touchdown rate rises from just under 4% to 7%. So I think it's a really good spot for Dak at home. Obviously, it's a spot you want to stack up, but I think this is a game that is going to be popular in cash games as well.
Yeah. One last thing. Bales nailed it. I mean, this is a game theory pod, and I think it's like a guarantee that Gallup's going to be the lowest, rostered player here. But like he had Jalen Ramsey and a ton of pressure. Remember, this line is not like the typical Cowboys line. Travis Frederick retired. Lael Collins is on the IR. Like they're going to have pressure problems. I mean, I don't know if you saw the clip of Aaron Donald, the guy. I mean, dude. He literally took out 3 people at the same time, and like that's actually scary to me. Like that's, I don't know, man. I know it's just a game and that's football, but oh my god, like that's insane. And like they're not. It's not going to be the same with Atlanta. I mean, I know they're a little bit better personnel wise this year, but last year they were horrible, bottom 3 in creating pressure. And I wrote up Gallup a couple times last year. He smashed. He's the type of guy that needs time for his routes to develop, and he should have way more time this week than last week, and he's gonna be the lowest owned. I love the play.
All right, I think we covered that game pretty well. We're going to move on to the next one, which is one of the later games: Baltimore Ravens, Houston Texans, over under of 52. I think for cash games, this game will be somewhat popular. For tournaments, it's pretty clear like you want to stack the Ravens on every slate, right? Lamar is such an interesting case. I was talking to Bales about this this morning, but it's just funny to see how high Lamar's ceiling has got. So he only ran the ball 7 times last week, no rushing touchdowns, still walked his way to 27 DraftKings points. Like it's absolutely insane. And this Texans defense is not going to be good whatsoever. As far as injuries go, it looked like Duke Johnson was going to miss this game, but he got back to practice on Wednesday for the Texans. And then on the Ravens side, Ronnie Stanley missed practice. He got banged up in that Cleveland game, so I guess that's something to monitor. But nothing crazy. I do have a Ravens shirt on, so shout out to Anthony. I put this on just for you if you're watching this. Just from last week, I had to put this on just for that. But Bales, I'll let you start off here. How are you attacking this game?
Yeah, for me, I think it's pretty simple. From the Baltimore side, Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown, and Mark Andrews. Those are the 3 that I'll be using. I think you can possibly use a running back. I'm not messing around with who's getting the touches, who's going to get the touchdown. I want literally nothing to do with that on the slate. So I'm going to stick with those 3. On the other side, I will let someone else outline Houston all the way, but I just want to talk about David Johnson. On paper, it doesn't look like a great matchup. It really isn't because they're going to be down so much. But Johnson was one of, I believe, 4 running backs during week 1 to play more than 80% of the snaps. The other 3 were Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Zeke. So if you're putting David Johnson in the amount of snaps that they're getting, it's a pretty good role. On top of it, it's not like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt didn't find success on the ground. They actually looked really good. It just so happens that Cleveland was down so fast that they couldn't run with them. But if that's the case, David Johnson lined up in the slot twice last week, and he lined up out wide 13 times. Obviously, we didn't see his receiving ceiling last week whatsoever. He played well, but he only had 4 targets. If they're going to keep playing him just like solely at wide receiver, we know that he's going to see more targets than that. And we know from his time in Arizona that obviously he's an elite receiving back. If you didn't watch the game, he looked really good. He seems as if he fully recovered from the ankle injuries. He made a few great cuts. One was on a touchdown. I really like David Johnson to get back to maybe not elite form, but he's not priced like it. He's only 5,800. It's just super cheap. So David Johnson's someone that I'm really looking to attack in tournaments, mainly because players don't really use guys that are big underdogs at running back just because they're so scared of them not getting carries. But realistically, I would rather David Johnson get catches than carries anyway.
Cool. Yeah, I was just going to hit on the Houston side as far as their defense. It's not good, man. You know, PFF had them as a 25th ranked secondary going into the season, and then they just lost Garyon Conley to the IR, who I think is their best corner. And I'm not afraid of Bradley Roby. It looks like that he might even put a shadow on Marquise Brown. But like Hollywood, man, I think he's going to be like. So we know that Tyreek Hill is always like 7,500, 7,700 because of the explosion factors. I think the explosion factor is going to be there for Hollywood Brown this year. A lot of people think that he actually could be the fastest guy in the NFL. Truly, he was gearing up to really try to beat John Ross's 40 time, and then he couldn't because he had a Lisfranc injury going into the draft. But I mean, think about it. Last week, Cleveland has a better secondary, a better pass rush. They were winning by 1 million points, and he caught a 47-yard pass. It was a perfect pass by Lamar. They want to pass more. I think that you have to start looking at Hollywood Brown like you would Tyreek Hill and just like act like Tyreek Hill is 6,200 this week and literally just play him. I love Mark Andrews. I was big on him last week. That really salvaged my week with how heavy I was on 2 touchdown game from Andrews. They said they want to play him more snaps this year, and then week 1 he had a career high in snaps. Snap percentage. So it was indicative of, I think, of what we're going to continue to see. And the last thing I'll mention is that, like, Bales, you mentioned not wanting any part of the run game. And I think like that's like indicative of what type of strategy you're taking each and every week, which is fine. But I think for people that do a lot of lineups, I think you have to target this almost every week. I think you're going to have a back that gets 2 tutties like every week. Last week was Dobbins in his first game as a pro, and he got 2 touchdowns. I mean, we saw Ingram get a bunch of 2 touchdown games last year, Lamar. So I think this run game is so sick. They're going to be up by so many points, so many games. Player, you want to mix in some Dobbins and Ingram here and there because there's that upside factor. And yeah, last thing, like Ben said, the rushing, don't underestimate the rushing. We haven't seen a rushing game. It's only been 1 week, but a big rushing game out of Lamar. A third of his games last year, he rushed for 100 yards or more, and then one of those games, it was 95 yards. So it's like, dude, it's a matter of time before he has a crazy game.
Yeah, Bales and I did a Bold Call podcast before the season started, and one of mine was that Lamar actually scores more fantasy points this year than he did last year. He's due for some positive regression in terms of rushing touchdowns compared to what he did last year. So I agree. The big game for that is coming. But yeah, the beautiful thing about this Ravens team is where the ball's going, and it's going to, like you said, Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews. So play those guys. Brown, I have in my tentative FanDuel cash game build, so I'm super happy to listen to what Matt said because I think it's just too cheap, 6,200, and it's such a good matchup. And these guys, both those guys, were basically part-time players last year, and they're like the ceiling is so high on them now that they're actually going to be on the field. I mean, Hollywood Brown went crazy week 1 last year, and he did it on like 8 snaps or like something crazy. Like he barely was on the field, and he scored 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So that's like the huge thing. But I mean, I think that the Texans are fine if you're stacking that game. Like if you want to run it back with Will Fuller, he's going to get the majority of the targets here. Or you want to use Brandon Cooks. Like I think the ceiling is obviously there with both of those guys. David Johnson, I think, is fine. He shouldn't get game scripted out.
Should we like Fuller, Ben? Like I think like a lot of people are going to like, not a lot of people, but like I guess I think you and I are both Fuller fans. I don't know if Bales is. We had that crazy week last year where we just nailed it. And like he's such a good receiver. He's got speed. He can do all those routes that Hopkins can run.
Yeah.
His hands aren't as good, but I mean, like, why aren't we more into Fuller this week? Why is the industry kind of down on Will Fuller this week? If like they're clearly the game script is perfect for Will Fuller.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't score a touchdown on that first game, so everybody saw that. So they're like, "Oh, this guy sucks. He didn't score a touchdown," and quote unquote tough defensive matchup. But I know. For personally, obviously I'm from Ohio, so I had Red Zone on one TV, I had the Browns game on the other TV, right? And I was watching the Browns game. Odell could have had a pretty big game. Like he was on Marlon Humphrey, but he drew 2 pass interference calls on Marlon Humphrey, I think on the same drive as like back-to-back plays. and he could have had a much bigger game. He only saw 40% catchable targets from Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield did not play well. I mean, did not play well at all. So Odell could have had a pretty big game. So no, I'm not worried about it at all. I think Fuller's a really strong tournament play. And to echo what you said about the running backs, I mean, everyone knows Ohio State fan. I'm a big J.K. Dobbins fan, but he started the second half for Mark Ingram. I think that even with Ingram being there, I think there's a solid chance that Dobbins gets a lot of the goal line work. So I think I don't think that, like, with Ingram still there, his price is never going to get super high, I don't think. So I think he's going to be a tournament play weekly. I don't mind Ingram either, but if I was going to play one of them, I would probably play Dobbins, I think, in tournaments.
Do you think Dobbins just really benefit from them being up 3 scores though? Like Dobbins had a good game, but he only had 7 rush attempts. It just so happens he found the end zone twice.
Yeah, they were both in the red zone though, and I think that when they get close, they're going to bring him in regardless. And I also think this is the similar situation to the Colts when they had Marlon Mack healthy. The cream will eventually rise to the top, and Mark Ingram is a pro's pro, right? Like, he's going to be on the field as long as he's healthy, but J.K. Dobbins is so good that there's just no way that they're going to be able to keep him off the field the longer that we go throughout the season.
It's almost like a 3-way deal, though. I mean, it was 39, 36, and 25% of snaps for Dobbins, Ingram, and Edwards, respectively. So I don't know. I mean, but the Gus touches are clearly the blowout factor, I suppose. I didn't know that J.K. Dobbins' profile is more of a goal line guy. I mean, that's interesting. I know he can catch the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he did coming out, but I just think that it's clear that that might be how they want to get him on the field, at least as long as they have Ingram. But, I mean, Dobbins is a guy, once Ingram's gone, like, if Ingram leaves the Ravens after the season, Dobbins is going to be like a top 5 pick in season-long drafts next year.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Sure.
All right, I think we nailed that game pretty well. The next game I think is pretty fun. Packers, Lions, over-under. This is another game the over-under's been creeping up. It's almost up to 50. Bales' boy, Aaron Rodgers, and his Packers, I mean, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but people were not expecting this team to be as pass-happy as they were last week. They were up pretty early in that game, and they just kept the foot on the gas, and they kept throwing it, which I thought was very interesting. Obviously the Lions, Kenny Golladay missed practice again today, and this secondary is extremely banged up. So Desmond Trufant is hurt. Justin Coleman went on IR. Darryl Roberts, who came in and got shredded by Trubisky, is injured. They are getting Okuda back, but everything I've heard is he struggled in training camp and was running with the twos for the most of the time in training camp, and it's going to be his first ever NFL game. So I don't really know what to expect from him, but this secondary is banged up, and I think it's another good spot for the Packers in tournaments. Devontae Adams is unbelievable, but Matt, I'll toss it over to you for this game.
Yeah, I'll try not to let my Lions fandom or lack. I don't know. I wouldn't call it fandom. I hate them, but I watch them.
This
every
is
week
a similar situation to me and the Browns because I'll always be a Browns fan because I'm from here, but I have no bias towards them. Like, I know that they're so bad to the point that I'm literally wearing a Raven shirt, like, because I love Lamar Jackson. I could care less about the rivalries or whatever, but it's just frustrating when you watch these teams suck for your entire life. Like,
yeah. It's bad, and to see Swift drop the ball right through his hands.
Oh my
God. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope I'm not like. So look, last week I didn't intentionally fade Devontae Adams. I thought he was a great play, and I said so in the Discord. I didn't talk anyone off him. I just the construction I went with a lot of Mark Andrews and whatnot. I just couldn't get there, and I didn't get there. But now I really want to play him. And I hope I'm not flip-flopping it and getting it wrong. But you look at last week, you dive a little bit deeper, you see that Devontae Adams scored both touchdowns out of the slot. We saw that a lot last year under the new tutelage of the coaching staff, and we saw that he gets a lot of money attempts from the slot. And like you mentioned, Justin Coleman just went down. So Justin Coleman was really the Lions' best corner after Slay, was traded to Philly. And of course, we got Okuda, but he's been struggling big time as a rookie in camp and whatnot. So with Coleman going down and the rest of our secondary being rough and us not providing really any pressure, it's like screams for Devontae Adams in this game. And really, you look at the Vegas, movement, and if anything, it shows that Detroit's going to make a bit of a game out of it. It opened at 46, it's up to 49.5, teetering right at the 50 mark there, and the line didn't move. It's still 6-point favorites for Packers, which just added more points for the Lions. So if the Lions can put points up and like they typically can do, although they lose all the time, they can put points up and give Rodgers a reason to throw it. I love Devontae again. I know he's pricey for sure, but like everything kind of lines up. The 2 touchdowns from the slot, our only good corner, who's the slot corner, goes down. It's kind of like, okay, I think we should probably go back to this. I'm frustrated as always with that backfield. It was again almost a 60-40 split, roughly, a little bit less than that. Jones gets all the high value touches, but I don't really want to go after the run game. I don't think I do. Of course, I don't want to touch the Lions run game. Yes, AP looked spry, but that's a 3-headed monster with Swift and Carryon and AP. And so I'm avoiding that. We got to know about Galladay, man. Like, we got to figure that out. I can't tell you if you should play Marvin Jones or not. It depends on Galladay. And then of course, I like Hawkinson. I think he's a special talent physically. He had a really, up and down camp, but his ups were like really up. He was super talented. So there's always upside there. Way more GPP leaning on any Lions plays, but I think Devontae is playable in any fashion.
Yep, Bales, go ahead. Gush about your Packers. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. What a team that is. No, in all seriousness, I honestly thought it was hilarious during the offseason when they drafted Jordan Love and everyone's like, well, where's Aaron Rodgers going? Like, that was ever a viable option. Like, Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be playing for Green Bay this year. Now, obviously, it doesn't look like he really cares. I'm sure he probably was a little pissed off. He wanted a receiver, but Valdez-Scantling looks much better this year. Lazard looks much better. I think you can play either of them in tournaments. Obviously, it's just Devontae Adams and cash. Just look at like anything he's doing. If you take away both his touchdowns, he still has a fantastic game. Like he didn't even need them. 17 targets. It's not like that's just going to change. He's just going to be a target monster. Valdez-Scantling's the guy that I'm a little iffy about. His snaps weren't really there. It was only a little above 50%. He was just super efficient. And he actually left a little bit on the table because he dropped a touchdown. But, I mean, for 4,600, I don't mind him. 53 for Lazard is where I would go with that. He just is getting more snaps. As for the running backs, if I play one, it's Aaron Jones, and there's really only one reason, and that's the red zone work. If you looked at last week, he actually led their team in red zone targets. He had 4. Devontae Adams only had 3. And then he also led the team, obviously, in red zone rush attempts. So it seems like they're really trying to get him work near the goal line. That was the case last year. Truthfully, I feel like they're not really going to work to get him the 18 touchdowns. I feel like they're going to try to make Aaron Rodgers a little happier than what, the 26, 25 that he ended with last season. But it's just a game that I really like. I'll add, if Galladay's out, Quintez Cephas is, I really liked coming out of college. Then he went to the combine and ran like he was stuck in mud. So, but he saw 10 targets, didn't really do much with them, 3 for 43. I mean, if you got a 3,800 guy that's seeing double-digit targets, though, it's not really a bad play in any scenario. It's really hard for that low of a price tag to beat you, especially with the upside that's there. So I don't really have any problems with him. He wouldn't be my first go-to guy, but if Galladay's out, I do think he makes a pretty solid play.
Yeah, I wasn't huge on him coming out of college, but he did see a lot of air yards last week, so I am interested in that for tournaments maybe. I think Jones is fine if you're stacking the Packers. I probably wouldn't play him over some of the other running backs on the slate by himself. Adams, so this is worrying me. I was talking to Matt a little bit earlier today, but I think the optimal route right now for cash games is probably not to play Devontae on DraftKings, which is worrying me a little bit, but yeah, he's obviously one of the best plays on the slate. And I don't, even if you're playing tournaments, obviously this isn't a cash game podcast is just general, but like I was fine with Devontae in tournaments, even at his expected ownership last week, and I think that the same case can be made this week, because there's other ways that you can get weird either in this game or just around him in your lineup. He's just going to dominate the targets. Matt covered why the matchup is so good. And yeah, that Galladay news is going to be huge because I think Marvin Jones, people will not go back to him. He was pretty chalky last week. Didn't really do much, but I think he's a really solid play again this week if Galladay's out. So hopefully, I mean, obviously we'll get that news before lock, but I think there's a solid chance that he's going to miss again. I don't know. I guess we'll see on Thursday if he comes back to practice or not. All right, we'll move to the next game. Vikings and Colts. Matt, I'm going to start with you again here because this game is interesting. Like I think there's going to be some higher owned plays here, and I think for tournaments there's some interesting plays as well.
Yeah. So I'm not super like deep in the woods on this game as far as research, but I am on a couple specific plays, and like I'm just bummed, man. Like this industry and this like game of DFS is getting so hard. Like it is becoming so sharp, and it's annoying. It's like, so I thought I had this cool play that I was like, I have all this really cool rationale why it's such a great play, and it's Paris Campbell, and literally at the early ownership numbers I'm seeing, he's going to be like nearly chalk, and it's like, oh, okay, so cool. But like, I don't know if I need to say it because I guess the whole industry is saying it, but I mean, people forget this guy. You know, he fell apart last year. He broke his hand. He broke his foot. He got a sports hernia. But the guy's a 4.31 burner with 40-inch vert, physically super gifted. It's one of your Ohio State Buckeye boys, which I don't like. I'm a Michigan State grad, but you know, like Phil Rivers likes these types of routes. He's running the Keenan Allen routes, and you know, last week he led all Colts positional players in snaps. He led all Colts players in targets and all Colts players in yards, running back or receiver. And like he looked really good, 9 targets and then a lot of high percentage plays. And then he could have busted a couple more. He just kind of shoestring tackles and whatnot. And he gets a matchup that we just talked about in the last game, which way different body type and type of player. But Devontae got both of his tutties out of the slot. You know, Mike Hughes is not a good corner. He was drafted, I think, in the first round, but Mike Hughes is nothing that you're worried about. And Paris Campbell gets Mike Hughes now. The fast track in Indy too, right? As everyone always likes to mention. I don't know why it's always the fast track in Indy. It's like, dude, it's just a dome. It's just, you know, they all kind of have the same turf, but whatever. And so like that's such a good play, but maybe it doesn't matter on the Game Theory pod because I guess everyone's on it, so I'm just like pissed about that. But I do love that play. I'm not going to play Jack Doyle. He's so slow and uninspiring. And yeah, he'll have some weeks where he gets a couple touchdowns, but like that guy's not going to do anything between the 30s and really get work done across the field. I mean, time to time, but I don't see it happening. I'm off that. On the Minnesota side, it's really tough because this team was touted as being a pretty nasty defense. Obviously, probably the best O-line in the league, that being Indy. We'll get to the Jonathan Taylor talk eventually, but I mean, this defense was going to be something that you wouldn't want to really mess with. And you know, they didn't look good last week against Jacksonville, losing to them. So it's like, okay, and they have, you know, a stud in Malik Hooker in the secondary for deep shots. But like, I want to play Thielen. I was surprised to see that Thielen's ownership, early look at least, is like really quite low. You know, Captain Kirk was taking some deep shots to him. That's where he got a lot of his production. But this team likes to keep everything in front of them. That's the type of scheme Indy runs. They have a lot of talent at the back end to take away the deep shot regardless, even if they're not playing zone. So, like, you don't love it. It's more of a dink and dunk game for Thielen. So it's like, maybe I don't like it. I'm kind of just looking at Taylor, who's going to be a smash, and then Paris Campbell. But again, I'm bummed out about Campbell. I don't know. What do you think, Bales?
I really, really like the Paris Campbell call, and I didn't see that as an early ownership. I don't really look at ownership until more or less Saturday because, truthfully, I just don't care that much because it's going to change.
Yeah.
I really hope he's low owned because Paris Campbell is such a good play. I will say, if Adam Thielen, and this might just be because I've won a lot of money with Adam Thielen, kind of like you with Julio. if he's low owned, I'm playing him. I don't really care. Last year, obviously, he was hurt a lot, and in that offense, I wouldn't have said the same thing. But with Stefanski now out of there, I said on our Bold Calls pod that he was going to go to the 100,010 club this year. Obviously, he had a really, really good start for it. But I feel like people are still really scared of Indy's defense. And to a point, I am too. Like, obviously, just because one team beat them that they probably were overlooking anyway, doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad or anything. But at the same time, if you're going to get Thielen really low owned, I still think that he's cheap enough that we're getting a little discount on his talent and role. Outside of that, though, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's probably going to end up being chalk, as he should be. Little weird thing for you, Ben, because I know that you're just going to absolutely love it. Did you know that they lined him up at receiver twice last week?
Yeah, I mean, he didn't catch
It's
passes.
good.
He didn't catch passes at Wisconsin, man. He can't catch any passes. Has any running
Neither
back
did James
ever?
White.
I know. Has any running back ever caught passes at Wisconsin? I just never understood this logic.
Melvin Gordon, yeah.
Yeah, but Taylor's he's so nice do you think, I'm assuming this is probably going to be the last week that he's under like 7,000. They'll probably just really bump him up next week. I would, assuming that Nyheim Hines doesn't just come in and take all the touches.
Yeah, the wheels are up for Jonathan Taylor. Like, it's such a good play. He's not going to be this cheap ever again, like you said. Hines can be like a mini Eckler in this offense, right? But Taylor is just going to take the work. Like, it was inevitable anyways. Even if Marlon Mack is healthy, Jonathan Taylor was going to force his way onto the field one way or another eventually. This just sped up the process. I do want to note, so Jack Doyle missed practice today. Matt, I don't know if I can interest you in some Mo Alley Cox. Trey Burton's on IR. So if Doyle's out, Mo Alley Cox is what they have.
Wow, Mo Alley Cox. Okay, fired up, boys.
Yeah,
I
haven't checked. I'm sure he's like free on DraftKings. Like, just talking though. Like,
he is. He's 3,000 actually, which is pretty free. But he wasn't like Logan Thomas.
Is he in the player pool or
on FanDuel? Just Jonathan Taylor in the player pool.
No, I swear to God. Okay, Mo Alley Cox, 3K and DK. Okay, sweet, good stuff. Yeah, Mo Alley Cox.
All right, dude. Mo Alley Cox is not bad. I'm not gonna lie.
I actually think he's pretty good.
I don't think he's bad.
I also just loved watching him play basketball
he's not bad. But dude, Paris Campbell, I'm here for Paris Campbell. I don't think there's any way he's chalk come Sunday. There's too many guys in that low 4K range. One of which is Deontay Johnson, who's 4,500, who is 100% going to be chalk. So I don't think
CeeDee Lamb too.
Yeah, and CeeDee Lamb's right there as well. So I don't think he's going to be chalk, and I think he is such a good play. Someone asked me on the Sunday stream, TY or Paris Campbell, and I said that I thought Campbell was going to be Keenan Allen for Phillip Rivers in Indy, and it seemed that way in the first game. So I think Campbell's.
Which, by the way, we shouldn't dismiss TY, right? I mean, the guy is special. He's really, really good, and he actually had a really good camp, with Rivers. So did Paris actually, but like if you're doing a lot of lineups, again, I always want to talk to that crowd too, and from week to week, I do that as well. Like he didn't, so unless this is a new thing, I'm trying to check if we have last week's slot. Yeah, I mean, dude, he ran some slot routes last week. TY did, so it's nothing that Paris ran almost exclusively when they're on 3 wide, but like you should have some TY, right? I don't want to hype up Paris Campbell and then it's all anyone plays, and then we see TY go off for kind of a TY at home game. It's entirely possible, but I think the sneakier play and more cost effective is Campbell.
Yeah, I agree. What do you make of Cook? Because I think Cook had 2 touchdowns last week. He actually got some ownership in FanDuel last week. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows how sharp, like you said, how sharp the industry is, but I don't think he's going to be very highly owned.
Yeah, 22-point team total on the road. We didn't cover the spread. I'm assuming they're dogs to Indy. Yeah, they're 3-point dogs. It's not horrible. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can't really game script Dalvin Cook out of a game though. Like, he's super talented. Dal is a guy that you don't play and in the first quarter he has a 60-yard reception, and you're like, oh my God, no Dalvin Cook, no money. Like, that happens. And so I think, like, again, multi-lineup guys, you should be absolutely including some exposure to Dalvin Cook, because a lot of running backs are not this way, but he is the type that can absolutely go off with huge plays. AC was in this all last year. And I did a pulled an AC, and I like gave myself a note at some point last year. I said, I was like, never fully fade Cook or Saquon, because both those are examples. They can just completely explode on big plays. So, but yeah, I don't think he's going to be owned very much.
Yeah, so that's a good time. If you guys are interested in a subscription, we had a huge week one, dfskarma.com/shop. You can get access to Matt's core plays, my core plays, Bale's core plays for every slate. You can see if we have Dalvin Cook in any of our core plays. But we're going to head to the last game before we head to the positional talk. Washington Redskins, Arizona Cardinals, over under a 47. This is a super interesting game. The Cardinals are very cheap on DraftKings. I'm curious to see ownership projections later on in the week and see where that comes in, because Drake, Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk is free. I mean, these guys are all cheap. And I do think there's some decent plays on the Washington side. Bales, I'll start with you here.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler's way too cheap. The only issue is that, there's other quarterbacks for cash that are also way too cheap that you're probably going to use over him. And it's not really going to be overly difficult for you to get up to them. So Kyler, I feel like it's just a fantastic tournament play, because he gets chased around anyway. So when Carson Wentz couldn't get away, it feels like Kyler has a much better shot to. And then once he breaks contain, I mean, if they don't have a spy on him or something, he could go for, I believe his 100 yards got taken away on a kneel out of shotgun,
out
right?
of the shotgun. Never seen this in my life, dude. Never seen this in my life.
But he's a guy like Lamar that just has so much rushing upside. And then if you're stacking him with anyone, it's just DeAndre Hopkins. I know we were all super worried about Hopkins not practicing or anything, and man, do we look dumb now. 14 for 151 on 16 targets. Just ridiculous. I don't think that he's going to keep up that type of target share. It's just a little too much for their receivers, but I do absolutely like him there. And I will 100% be on Kenyon Drake at 5,900. It's way too cheap. He played over 70% of the offensive snaps last week. Him and Edmonds were actually on the field together quite a bit, and Edmonds ran a lot of routes from receiver. I think he was like second or third in the NFL as a running back that ran out of either the slot or wide out. So I'm not going to play Edmonds myself. Obviously, we saw him catch a touchdown, which kind of bumped up his production a little bit. But Kenyon Drake, I think his running back snaps are 100% fine. And we all know the upside that he possesses if he's going to be out there for 70, 80% of the snaps.
Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, I don't know. This game's interesting. I mean, the pace should be, really quite good. We know what Kingsbury wants to do, and he did in week one. So I like that, and the total is decent, 47.5. There's some plays here. It's funny. At first, I really liked Drake, and I thought, that he was viable. But then the Edmonds stuff, the more I looked into it, kind of made me more and more worried. So I don't love Drake for cash, certainly. I think he's a big upside guy with a lot of physical gifts that can certainly pop off in a fast paced offense, putting up point. I mean, they got 27-point team total. They could certainly put some production up. I think Kyler's too cheap as well. I liked him for cash at first, but then I'm like, we'll just go up to Dak. It just seems easy. So I kind of fell off of that, but I'm going to Logan Thomas. I had a little bit of him last week, not as much as Ben. Ben, nailed that one. Again, I went heavier on Andrews. But I'm gonna focus most of my exposure to Hayden Hurst and Logan Thomas this week. I'm gonna have some Andrews. I'm gonna have some Kelsey lineups where I'm getting some KC exposure, because that's the best spot in that game for KC is Kelsey, I think. But no, I think Logan Thomas is good, man. I think it's weird. He's a former quarterback. He's kind of got the body of a tight end. He's got enormous, almost 11-inch hands. He's a big guy. He can run really sophisticated routes. His route running is like really, really good. He was top 3 in the league for routes run or percentages of quarterback drop back. He didn't block, I think, at all. I could check. Yeah, he blocked like on 2 snaps. So I think he's a good spot. We know that it was like that was the spot last year. It was tight ends against Arizona. Not necessarily the same exact scheme, same personnel this year, but they still got Pat Pete, in the secondary, and not as much talent across the middle of the field and that safety. So, it's a perfectly good spot. I was shocked that his price didn't come up more. Like 3.6, like I don't know. To me, that's gonna be pretty highly owned. Are you back on Logan Thomas, Ben, for this week?
Oh yeah, dude. Look, I played him week 1. He was 2% owned in cash games, and it was probably me and everyone that has our core plays, for being honest.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else played him in cash, but yeah, I'm going right back to him. Do you guys know who drafted Logan Thomas? Bales, do you know this?
Oh yes, it's a revenge. Yes.
Hashtag revenge game. It's like the stars are aligning.
I thought you were talking like an actual GM. I was like, no, off the top of my head, I don't.
The stars are aligning. Elite matchup, obviously. Revenge game.
That stuff matters, dude.
Oh, you know he wants to just ball out against him. Like, oh, I can't wait. Yeah, it's gonna be great. But yeah, you got. I just play him in cash. He's not gonna be a secret this week though. He's gonna have ownership, but I think this is the Christian Kirk week, man. Looking back,
yes.
Looking back on last week, I think I should have known that they were going to force the ball to Hopkins. A, first game there. B, they didn't have any practice time together because Hopkins was out so long. So it should have been obvious that they were just going to force the ball to him and try and get him and Kyler on the same page. But Kirk still saw 37% of the team's air yards, and they did look to him on a deep ball later in the game, and they just didn't connect on it. But they overcorrected his price way too much. I think he's 4,300 on DraftKings. That's just way too cheap for Christian Kirk in an offense that is going to run the way that this Cardinals team does. So I think Christian Kirk is such a good play this week.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Before we head to the thing, I want to talk about Washington real quick. So McLaurin, what are you guys doing with McLaurin? I don't think he's going to be high owned after he was massive chalk last week, but
yeah, he's so good, man. That's the thing. He's such a good receiver. I mean, I read a bunch of stats about him in the offseason, and his contested catch rates were just off the charts, and he was a rookie. It was the best of all time for a rookie. So, and I think this matters to an extent. Look, there was no preseason. It was a disjointed off private workouts, but obviously we know the connection between Haskins is real with McLaurin since freshman in college. Again, God, we keep talking about Ohio State. It's so annoying.
This is such a good pod. Love this.
Where's all my Sparties to talk about? Oh, yeah, nowhere. Oh, Captain Kirk, I guess. Kirk Cousins, we talked about him. But so yeah, man, I think you again, he's an explosion player type of guy. He should see a lot of Patrick Peterson, but Pat Pete's 30 now. I don't think he's going to be as clearly as down as he used to be. And Terry already shows us that you can catch contested, balls with no problem with the best of them. So, is he a core play? Probably not. I'm absolutely playing him on run backs against, any Arizona stacks. And I think that a guy like that is the type that you want to have exposure to. He's not like most receivers. Not every receiver has total explosion potential, right? I mean, there's so many that don't. Well, he's one that does. So
I agree with it. I mean, he's going to be so low owned after not necessarily looking great. I mean, he looked fine. I watched the game because I live in Philly. That's the game that was on. He looked 100% fine. But Logan Thomas had 8 targets compared to McLaurin's 7. So I think people are going to kind of look at that and be like, maybe McLaurin's not as big a part of the offense. And that's probably just not true. It's just, a 1-game basis. So I'm 100% fine with McLaurin. I would just more or less stick with it in tournaments over cash.
Yeah, I mean, did anyone really think Logan Thomas wasn't going to get 8 targets? I mean, come on. What are you guys doing?
Jesus Christ.
No,
so ridiculous.
Such an easy call.
All right.
Hey, that was a good find on your part, man. He looked good. They had glowing camp reports of him, and it worked, So that's good. That's good research.
Yeah, that stuff often doesn't work out, so it's great when it does work out. But we'll head to the we're going to talk cash game plays and then tournament plays, position by position. We'll go cash games first. Quarterback, I think it's three guys for me this week: Lamar, Dak, Josh Allen. Those are the three guys I'm trying to get in my lineup. I'm going to pick between one of those three. Josh Allen, again, you can find this in my article when it goes live, but he averaged his last 4 meetings with Miami just under 80 rushing yards per game with 0.75 rushing touchdowns per game. Really good spot for him on the ground. Cam just ran 2 in against them last week. Should have had 3. And their offense, they ran a lot of 4 wide. They threw the ball a little bit more. It looked like a more fantasy-friendly offense than what we saw last year. So I'm really leaning towards Allen as of now. Matt, where are you going? Cash game quarterbacks.
Careful with your personal bias there, man. Like, I don't know. I think I just like, I know you like, look, you love Josh Allen, and that's okay. And of course, Miami's horrible, but like the game script's negative, for sure for him. And for the price for $100 more, you get Dak in a dome with a massive team total with a shootout game. I think I'm going to try hard to talk you off of Allen eventually towards the end of the week. We'll see. I just think Dak is an elite play, and Allen's like a good play. But yeah, I'm basically going Dak. I considered Kyler, but I can find the 700 this week. We keep talking DK, and I love my piece of FanDuel, but you always talk DK prices, but like FanDuel is not that different. Like this week, you basically, it's as always, it's quite easy to make things work. And this week, you're basically going Lamar or Dak. There's not a big discount between Dak and Kyler really at all. And with FanDuel being a little bit softer, you can get up to Lamar even. So on DK, it's really Prescott and Kyler, probably just Dak though. And then FanDuel, I'm looking like Dak as well. Real quick question: is it too crazy on FanDuel to literally go Dak, Zeke, and then one of the pass catchers, or is that fine in this type of game environment and team total?
No,
I like it.
100% fine. I think you can do it on DraftKings as well. But Bales, before I kick to you, Josh Allen, 2019, 5.5 yards per attempt in losses, jumps to 7.4 in wins. Touchdown percentage, 2.9% in losses, jumps to over 5% in wins. So,
all right, I like it.
All right, Bales, cash game quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo a little bit of what both of you said. Ben, the 3 that you outlined, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, and Josh Allen, are the 3 that I'm choosing between. But to go with what Matt said, I actually believe that Dak is slightly better than Josh Allen this week. I don't know. I like to get a guy in the shootout game, and we know that Atlanta's defense is going to be bad. It's not like it's a projected shootout with a defense that could be decent. Like, we know that Atlanta's defense is very bad. So I just don't know if you have to necessarily rely on Allen. But at the same time, like, it's not like they were ever in danger of really losing against the Jets, and he had 14 attempts. So am I really that worried about Josh Allen, just stop playing and then they're going to run out the clock? Not really.
Yep, cash game running backs for me. Zeke, Derrick Henry is just in one of the greatest spots. It's just such a good spot for Henry. Owns Jacksonville, massive home favorite. I told Matt earlier, got trolled out of 2 touchdowns last game on Monday night. So they're gonna want to get him in the box. I mean, Mike Vrabel literally got on an airplane with a mask that said, "Please give Derrick Henry the ball" before Monday night. I mean, like, it's like too perfect. So I think he's a really good play. Jonathan Taylor is too cheap. Like, that's really the pool for me, right? Like, I don't see why I would want.
I didn't hear Benny Snell, Ben. I thought you were playing him.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's the pool for me. So I need you to talk me, like, give me your Benny Snell take. Like, are we doing this Benny Snell thing? Because he is 100%. No. When we get to the weekend, I'm telling you, 100%, he is going to be one of the highest owned players on the slate. As long as James Conner's out, which I assume he's going to be.
Good. That's good. That means there's some edge left in fantasy football and DFS, man. Like, here's the thing. Like, opportunity is the biggest thing. And yes, we know that. And Pittsburgh's a pretty good offense and a decent O-line. But, like, Denver's really good. They're number 1 against the run last year. While Henry got fed, yeah, he was like was it like 3 yards a carry or less? I mean, granted, that was at home in Mile High. But, like, oh, yeah, Benny Snell's bad, dude. He ran like a 4.7 coming out of college. And I just think it's forcing it. Like, oh yeah, every week we look for value to open up, and then everyone just flocks to it and then assumes that the plays that it opens up are automatically better than the players that they would not have played. But like everything's relative. It doesn't guarantee that more money is going to give you better players. And like from a Taylor smash spot, Jonathan Taylor at 5.7 down to Benny Snell at 4.5. This isn't last year. Remember, DK went from 3K min to 4K min for running backs. And if this was last year, probably Benny Snell would be in the 3.3, 3.5, 3.7. Well, now he's 4.5. And I think that matters. And I think that it's kind of fool's gold. Yeah, he got a lot. I kind of buried the lead. Yeah, he looked good this past week. Fine. What? I don't know, man. I just think that this is so classic that he looks good. He's cheap. He's got the opportunity, but it's a horrible matchup. And he just puts out a shitter of a game, a la like every value play last week. Obviously Gibson changed, but like Boston Scott was like, man, I just think you don't need to force it, man. Like, I think you had it right. I think if you go Zeke, Henry, and Taylor, I think that's fine. I flirted with the idea of Drake, home favors, 27-point total. I got a little worried on the Edmonds stuff, but for me, that's who it's going to be. And don't let me play Benny Snell. Do not let me play him.
All right, Bales. Anyone else for cash games you're looking at running back?
I will throw my Benny Snell 2 cents in here, where if you're dropping down to 4,500, we're around there in that range.
Please don't.
No.
Okay,
I'm saying
okay.
in cash, you're gonna go Benny Snell. Like if you decide that you're spending down, I don't see anyone. I guess if you want to take like a shot on James Robinson, but you're just gonna go
Zach
Benny
Moss,
Snell.
Maybe
get
Zach
out
Moss.
of here. You get out of here. With that being said, like I'm gonna add Christian McCaffrey. He was like 22% on last week. I don't care that he's 10K. It doesn't matter. Just play the man. It seems like no one ever plays him. I get it. He didn't see as many targets.
I'm fading him.
I know. I can't believe I'm not playing him, dude. It's crazy.
I can't believe it either. Both games against Tampa last year, he was held to less than 60 total yards. Both games, literally 1.x yards per carry. New offense, not as good of an offense. I don't know, man. I'm just I should say not as good of an offense. I mean, it's probably better, but I'm just, this is the week I think where I'm finally fading, and you'll probably smash. But I like that Ben's fading.
I just don't get how you can fade McCaffrey. It's just I understand, and there's a lot of really good. Eric Henry.
Well, look at Zeke, dude. I think Zeke's median projection this week is better than C-Mac, right? I think, and he's 2K less almost, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Derrick Henry is 2K less. So if those guys weren't in such a good spots, I think you're right. You suck it up and you played him in a bad matchup. But like, dude, because of Zeke and Henry this week, I think is why you can fade C-Mac more than anything.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think that's fine. Plus, then obviously you're going to play Jonathan Taylor, which would make up your 3.
Right.
And keep Benny Snell out of cash. But
yeah, I mean, dude, Von Miller out. These reports like Benny Snell dropped this weight in the offseason. He did look good on Monday night.
He looked good.
Yeah, he did look good on Monday night. So people are gonna play him.
Dude, if I lose because of Benny Snell, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. It'll all just come down to what you could do, like by dropping to him. But I mean, Jonathan
I'm not going to look at my kids in the eyes, okay, on Sunday when I'm down thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm going to look at my kids, and I'm going to know that I lost that money for our family because I played Benny Snell. I would rather lose not playing Benny Snell than lose money for my family playing Benny Snell, dude. I mean, I don't know. You put U.S. currency on Benny Snell. I don't know. I'm not doing it.
I don't know. We'll see.
I work hard, dude.
We'll see. Wide receivers. So I think Devontae, clearly best play if you're spending up. Anthony kind of flirted with the Tampa guys on the cash process, and this whole Chris Godwin's in concussion protocol now, so we don't really know what's going on with that. We'll have to wait and see. That could open up some value if he's out. Bales, I know, like Scotty Miller. Brady loves his slot guys. I think some value could be opened up there. In the mid tier on DK, it is Amari Cooper through and through. 6,300 is just way too cheap for that matchup, so I think he's a great play. FanDuel, you have Hollywood Brown at 62. Bobby Woods, I like a lot at his price on both sites. I think is good for cash games. And then once again, last week I felt like you were going to win navigating that 5 to 6K range. I think the 4 to 5K range on DK this week is where you're going to win because there's a ton of good plays. Notably, I think Deontay Johnson is going to get the most ownership there, coming off that 10 target game, and he's only 4,500. But there's a lot of good plays in that range. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, like I'm assuming we're going to get to GPP plays next, right? So this is just cash.
Yeah, we're going to go through all the cash plays, and then we'll go through tournaments, and then
yeah, you know, for cash. I kind of came on to Deontay Johnson more and more this afternoon. You know, he looked way better in the second half after kind of struggling in the first half. Then he muffed the punt, but he started looking great. He had 10 targets. I like that matchup. Who went down in the secondary for Denver? Didn't they just lose someone?
AJ Bouye maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah, he's out.
Is he out?
He's out.
So there you go, man. And he would have been on the outside. And if they want to throw Juju in the inside, I think that makes life a lot easier, for Deontay Johnson. Washington, he's there too, and I guess we probably should be considering him too. But yeah, I was high on Deontay Johnson coming into the season. I like him a lot. I'd play him in cash.
Yep, Bales.
I agree with that. I really like Deontay Johnson. I actually have a bet that Deontay Johnson outscores Darius Slayton on the season, so that really started poorly with Slayton.
Oh, that's going nuts.
But
that's a rough start.
Everyone was talking about it, but we knew that Slayton was going to have those boom games. He did it twice last year, so I'm not really worried about it overall. I don't know if you guys want to run this in cash, and I really want to hear what you guys have to say. But how are we feeling about Mike Williams?
Yeah, I was going to bring him up actually. Tournaments, I think he's a good play at his price. Only knock for me is I just hate I think their offense is going to be literally so bad. But Tyrod was looking for him more than he was Keenan, and we know Mike Williams has upside, especially at that price. I can't believe he came back. I thought I saw this report he was going to miss all of September, and then Sunday morning comes and he's going to play. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. Well, the thing. Go ahead.
No, that's such a play I've not thought about at all.
He's cheap, man. He's cheap.
Yeah, wow. Maybe
he gets such the
he's bad at football, but he's cheap.
Well, he only really, if he gets 9 targets, to hit value, he only needs to catch a few balls, especially if one happens to be in the red zone, because he is always catching the ball 20 yards down the field.
No, it's true.
All right, and we'll finish up cash game tight ends. I think it's Logan Thomas. You can always spend up if you want, but you're saving in cash games generally. If you want someone else, I don't mind going back to Herndon. Still not a great matchup, but much the Bills are one of the worst matchups for tight ends possible. So I do think Herndon is in play.
Quick on Herndon. Careful.
Okay.
Careful, Herndon. No tight end blocked more last week than Herndon, which is weird because it's not the profile that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually.
Yeah,
I would never guess that.
Yeah, I know. Neither would have I. But I sorted by blocking percentage of snaps, and Herndon led the league in week 1 in blocking snaps, whereas the bottom 2 were Mandrews and Hayden Hurst. They're just not blocking; they're running routes. So that was shocking. So I'm going to be careful. I'm going to fully fade and see if this is a thing. Obviously, they probably were worried about pressure last week. Was it Buffalo last week? Yeah.
Yeah, and no quarterback. I think Darnold saw the most pressure of any quarterback last week.
Okay. So they needed him then. I guess that they needed him on the inline blocking, but that was just at least a little bit shocking to me and cause for concern. But I think we should dig into that a little bit more. So.
Yeah, we'll go through tournament plays real quick here. Quarterback tournaments for me, Mahomes, always. I love to play Mahomes and Chief stacks in tournaments. And I don't know. If you guys don't want to play Josh Allen in cash, then I guess I'll play him in tournaments. I don't know. That's probably my picks there.
Yeah. No, I like Josh Allen in tournaments for sure. I like a lot of Lamar. I guess I'm not playing Mahomes this week. It just feels so weird to say that.
Yeah, Lamar, if I don't get Lamar in cash, tournaments for sure, 100%.
Yeah, which means I want to get a lot of Hollywood in tournaments, even as a one-off without Lamar lineups. I want a lot of Hollywood in that game, in GPP. So probably my number one-off in GPP is going to be Hollywood. I want lots of Lamar. Yeah, man. It's kind of gross to say it, but if Godwin is back, I want some Tom Brady this week. I think this is a really good get right spot. Against a horrible sieve of a defense with Carolina. It's going to be, I think, again, a get right spot. I think that with those weapons, with Evans even more healthy and not being shadowed by Lattimore, I think Tom could just sling it and get one of his 4 touchdown games. We really need Godwin news to clear here. They don't even know if he has a concussion, by the way. He just had symptoms this morning after being fine the last 2 days, which is goofy. So it's not even a for sure thing that he has a concussion, but the first step of the 5-step deal is to get rest. So that's what he's going to do. And then he has to start doing some non-contact stuff. So if Godwin's in, I want a lot of Godwin one-offs. I would even play him in cash on FanDuel because pricing is soft. Godwin's in a total smash against Carolina. But yeah, I like Brady and GPPs again if we get Godwin back.
Yeah, it's a good call, Bills.
Yeah, I'll echo Brady. I actually was thinking about him. The number one guy that I'm looking at in GPPs is Aaron Rodgers. Detroit's defense is bad. But Trubisky dropped 25 on him, and he completed 55% of his passes. Imagine what Aaron Rodgers could do. He's just significantly more efficient. Trubisky had 20 completions and scored 25 fantasy points. It was a little ridiculous. Not that I expect Rodgers to really do what he did last week, but he doesn't have to. And there's not a single person that's going to play him with Dak Prescott 100 cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah, love it. What about Matty Ice? Shouldn't we be playing Matty Ice? The guy just slings it.
Yeah, I just have this thing, man. I just can't. I hate to play quarterbacks that don't run. I don't know why. It's just I have this mental block with it. There's so many guys that run now. It's not like 3 years ago.
I like him on DK. You get the 3-point bonus for 300 yards, which you just always. I think.
Yeah, it's that's an automatic. It's like an automatic. So that actually kind of helps because if you're assuming that a guy that runs has a 3 or 4 point floor, like a Lamar, that's basically the same thing. So yeah, that makes sense. GPP running backs for me, 6K on DraftKings. Miles Sanders. No one is playing Miles Sanders. I will tell you this. No one is playing him if he's active. He was expected to be maybe the highest owned running back on the slate before this whole situation came where he was going to miss the game. He ended up not playing. Lane Johnson, I think, is going to be back, which helps their line for sure. And Miles Sanders is extremely good as a pass catcher. And I think that even if they're bringing a lot of pressure, the Rams, I think that it's going to work out well for him. I think that they can dump it off to him a bunch. And I think Miles Sanders is really good. I think he's better than a 6K running back, so I'm interested in him. Matt, I'm really curious about yours, Matt.
Really? I think you're curious if I'm going to play one guy too, aren't you?
I am.
You want to know if I'm okay? Is it Austin Eckler?
Yeah, I was. You and Bales both because I know you guys love Austin Eckler. So
I love Eckler.
Dude, I think this is a perfect statement. If you don't play Austin Eckler this week, you should never play him the entire year. You should never play him because that means that you don't believe in him as a player and his system, all that off of 1 week with the rookie getting some extra work and Joshua Kelly. Do the last 2 games against Kate, but no team is worse in last year or 2 years than the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs as far as defending pass catching running backs. The last 2 games against KC, he had 9 and 8 catches against them. He just got 18, 19 carries. He had 20 touches in week 1. Dude, the guy's a monster. He was nearly as efficient as CMC and in a lot of metrics better than CMC from a receiving perspective last year. He had a freak offseason. He's ready to explode. He didn't look amazing, but he got 20 touches. He's going up against the best possible matchup for his best skill set, which is catching the ball. They're probably going to be trailing. Again, if you don't play him this week, then just never play him because he's really cheap. He got a big price decrease. And this is his game, man. I'm GPPs, Eckler's going to be way, way up there for me.
All right, Bills.
I like it. I'm going with David Montgomery in this spot. It just seems like a spot where, guys come in and then they struggle. Not even that Montgomery was absurdly bad in terms of fantasy last year. Obviously he looked really bad, but we know that he's better than that. I'm not going to trust just a small basis there. He looked much better in his first week. He only played 45% of the snaps basically after he dealt with an injury, but he did touch the ball on 50% of the snaps that he was on the field. And obviously he got pulled for Cohen just because they were down and they needed to make a comeback. They're 5.5-point favorites against a team that just let Benny Snell run for 113 yards. If Snell can do it, David Montgomery can do it. It's just a really good spot, and he's only 5,600. So I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty interested in him here, especially since he actually saw 3 targets, which, don't get me wrong, that's not a lot. Like, he's not going to destroy in the receiving game like Eckler can. But it's not that bad for only playing 45% of the snaps. So I feel like there's a little bit more receiving upside than what he flashed last year.
I love that. I was not expecting that. Let me rattle off 2 or 3 more that I have in my notes. Hopefully that they're not overlapping with Ben's. But I'm going to mention Zach Moss. He had 10-2. It was 10 touches to 2 touches in the red zone last week over Singletary. Last year, while Josh Allen does have the rushing touchdown upside, 78% of the carries inside the 5 last year were by running backs, Frank Gore and Singletary. It was not, the majority was not Allen. So 78% of the carries inside the 5. We saw that Zach Moss might be carving out a role. It's a wonderful matchup this week against Miami. And, guess where Zach Moss is born and raised? Miami, baby. So I don't know if it matters. So we got hometown cooking. He's literally he grew up 20 minutes from the stadium or whatever. But the whole fan thing is we got to figure. I don't know if it'll matter. I mean, his friends and family aren't literally going to be there, but I like that. I'm going to have some Zach Moss. I think that there should be some exposure to CEH. I mean, this offense is prolific under Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs teams. The running back averages 1.7 touchdowns per game. So 1.7 running back touchdowns per game under Mahomes' offense. Last week, did he have 1 or 2? He had 1 last week, but he got stuffed at the goal line twice. He had 1 touchdown. But I mean, they have some extra rest coming off a Thursday night game. People kind of forget. Dude looked great. He's going to get way more targets, I think. And San Diego, LA is the type of team that they haven't been great against the run. They've been much, much, much better against the pass. So I think CEH is going to get overlooked, even though he shouldn't. I think that's a really good spot.
Yeah, I was just about to ask No Edwards Hilaire for you guys, but love that play in tournaments. Wide receivers, GPPs for me. I kind of mentioned Kirk, who I think is a really good one. I think if you want to stack Josh Allen with someone, I think you could do that in tournaments. But we kind of talked about Michael Gallup as well, who I think is interesting. Bales, I'm going to kick to you before I get mine. I'm going to save mine for last, so Bales, I'll let you go first here.
Yeah, so this is kind of weird because one of the guys that I was going to outline, one guy that I did outline was Michael Gallup. We obviously talked about him. Another one that I did is Mike Evans, but it seems like he could turn into a little bit of chalk if Godwin can't go. So I don't know how GPP that is. I will say one guy that I can't imagine you guys are looking too much at is Brashad Perryman is 3,800 and played 100% of the snaps last week. I don't know if you guys actually think Perryman is good. I do. I think that if his career wasn't more or less derailed by injuries, and obviously he had a few drops early in his career, but he's really shored that up over the last few seasons. I think he's actually a really good player, assuming he's healthy, which it looks like he is right now. So if he's going to play that many snaps, I know he only had 5 targets and really didn't do basically anything with them last week, but I'm not sure you're going to find anyone else at 3,800 that really comes with the upside that he has, just based on how actually talented he is.
Yep, Matt.
My biggest probably leverage. Again, I mentioned I like Godwin a lot. I think that was a great call on Gallup. I love all the Bama boys in that game with Cooper and Ridley and Julio. I mean, I don't think they're going to be massively owned at all, just because it's such a wide pool this week. And then my kind of sneaky leverage spot is AJ Brown. I think that there's a lot of exposure going to Henry. I think there might be a little bit of dumb exposure going over to Corey Davis, thinking that all of a sudden that is what this world that we live in now is that Corey Davis is the man. He won't be. I mean, there's just no way. AJ Brown is a freak. He had those massive, massive games He loves to beat up on Jacksonville. I mean, Tannehill's good, man. Just like look at Tannehill's game log since he took over the starting job. Dude throws for multiple touchdowns like every game, tons of 3-touchdown games. I love AJ Brown here. What I need to decide, and I got to do some digging, is like, do I put him in rosters that also has Derrick Henry, or do I like put him in rosters without Henry as like ultimate leverage? I got to figure it out. I just love that game so much. Big total. I got to figure out how I want to approach it. But again, Marquise Brown, I mentioned that's low, but AJ Brown is who I'm going to be looking to for my biggest kind of leverage GPP play.
Yeah, I think if you play them together, you got to play Tannehill, right?
Yeah, which I don't mind. I like that.
The real question then would be, you're running it back. I mean, DJ Chark's great, but you got to run it back with Laviska Shenault, right? I mean, this is just perfect,
yeah,
man. It's perfect.
He should get more handoffs. Why didn't he get more handoffs?
I thought he was going to get more. I mean, he got, 2? I think he got 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they should get him more involved. I do know they're saving it, but one of these weeks they're going to whip out the Wildcat, and they're just it's going to be great whenever they do it. I don't know when it's going to happen, though, is the problem. But, yeah, Fuller, I think, is a great one. And then I'm really interested in Allen Robinson. I don't. You guys aren't on the squeaky wheel narrative here with this whole contract stuff.
No, I am.
We should be.
Yeah, I
should be.
I was going to mention him, but that's a really good call.
Yeah.
What's the latest on him? Like, did he add back all the stuff to his social yet?
From what I saw today, it seemed like he said he was like on a good page with the Bears or whatever. So that's good. But I mean, it would just be fitting if he came and balled out this weekend. I really liked him in week 1.
Led the league in deep targets week 1.
Yeah. I was gonna say he was they were looking at him. Obviously, it's tough to trust Mitch, but he's never had a quarterback we could trust anyways. And the Giants got carved up by obviously Juju, Deontay. Like the Steelers, obviously, are more prolific than the Bears passing offense. But I do think it's a good spot.
Good call. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, for sure.
All right, and then real quick, tight end. We went a little bit long, but I don't really have a tight end take for tournaments right now, other than like you really sold me on Hurst. And then spending up like Kelsey, the touchdown regression hit for Kelsey in week 1, man. It was like instant hitting. So I think Kelsey's fine. Andrews for sure. Like spending up in tournaments is always a good move.
Yep, agreed.
I think I'm really hoping that Mike Gesicki struggles again against Buffalo, who obviously is.
Are they going to move? So are they going to move him to wide receiver at some point? Because he literally
he just plays in the slot.
Yeah, he does not play tight end at all. I'm wondering if that's going to be a thing.
I don't know, but the other guy that I like is Hunter Henry. He had a lot of targets. His role stayed virtually the exact same with Tyrod Taylor, except for he saw an increase in targets, and he was the preferred red zone guy. I believe he had 60% of their red zone targets, which isn't a lot in one game. It's only 3, but it's kind of telling. And obviously, he gets the matchup that we look for against the Chiefs, where Atkins and Fell really covered the tight end very well. So I think Hunter Henry probably goes overlooked because I think he comes with a lot of upside for the price.
Yep. I literally think I may have been muted, so I'm just gonna I literally think I was muted in OBS when I talked about Allen Robinson, but they could hear you guys, so hopefully they knew that I was talking about Allen Robinson's squeaky wheel narrative for tournaments.
He's a great play. He's a great play.
He's a good play.
Allen Robinson, baby.
But thank you guys so much for watching. As always, be sure to check out dfskarma.com. We have tons of free content. You can pick up a subscription for our core plays, get access to the Discord, props, all that good stuff. We have really affordable pricing, get as low as $15 a week. Anyone that signed up for week 1 literally paid off their whole stuff. I mean, it was a really big week 1. So those people are all set up for the year, and it's never too late to join. But with that being said, Bales and I have a podcast Friday night, The Perfect Pivot, so you'll be able to check that out. And then Sunday morning, 11 a.m., I don't know if it's me and Sam or Anthony, I don't know. The people on YouTube have banished Anthony from pods. I mean, they're just tearing into him anytime he's on a podcast.
They're brutal.
So
he's the OG. He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
Yeah. So with that being said, if you need anything else, hit us up in Discord, and I'll see you guys on Friday night with Bales.